Hey class, today we're going to talk about the Safavid Empire and really the rise of Ismail. So, as a reminder, we are talking about this purple country here. We typically call this area Persia. Again, our Ottomans are here, our Mughals are here, Safavids stuck in the middle. So, what about Persia in this time period? Well, we're looking at the late 1400s, and Persia is very much not unified. It had been a long time since there was a Persian dynasty. Right? It had been broken up into some independent kingdoms. They're competing kind of with each other. At the same time, there have been some invasions into Persia where you have people like the Mongols, the Timurids, the Uzbeks, the Turks. You have lots of different people who are trying to push into Persia and take over. And so really, it's a bit of a chaotic place. That is until we see the leadership of Ismail, who is the founder of the Safavid Empire. So really, the Safavid Empire is Persia, this whole region kind of turning a new leaf, creating a new dynasty of Persians. So, who is Ismail? Well, Ismail was born in the northern city of Ardabil, which is in modern Azerbaijan. If I go back up here, we're looking like way up in the top part of Persia. So, Ismail was born in Ardabil. His father was pretty important. His family is relatively important. His dad is kind of a Shia religious leader. I wouldn't say he's like a cult leader necessarily, but he is a very important religious leader in that region. He is Shia and has a pretty large following. His mother was related to a ruler of the nearby city of Trebizond. His mother was, came from a relatively important family as well. But the big thing, not his direct family, but his family lineage is important to him. And that's because he's related to Ali. Ali, as we recall, is the cousin of Muhammad, and one of the people who was nearly placed in charge after Muhammad's death. So Ismail really leans into this idea that he is related to Muhammad through this, right? He is part of the house of Ali, as they would say. And so he finds it very relevant and very important to his heritage and important to his, I would say, his legitimacy. So bad news for Ismail is that when he is 7 years old, his father gets killed. And so Ismail goes to live with an uncle. This uncle is also from his father's family, also important. His uncle starts to train him, and they start to build support for Ismail. And from an early age, people see Ismail as greater than a normal person. He's a bright kid and all of that, but they also recognize this kind of family lineage. They start to see him almost as like a savior for Shia Islam. And it's weird to think about how this develops, but basically you have this kid, and people just start coming in and supporting him, and they want to see him grow into and take over the throne and become a new kind of Persian king. And so from the age of 7, he starts building support. By the age of 12, he is able to leave his uncle's side, take an army of Shia supporters, and there are people who want to see him rise up and become this king and take control over all of Persia, enact religious reforms. He is supported by a lot of other Shia Muslims, and they want to see their form of Islam be spread further. And so he really builds some support from a pretty young age. 12 years old is like a 6th grader. Obviously, he's not a 6th grader in this picture. So he leaves his uncle's side. He starts his rise to power. He's basically the head of a large army, and they start taking over Persia. He does, I will say he has advisors. There are people who are helping him out. It's not just him making all the decisions, but he is the head, right? He is the person who is going to take the throne at the end. Why do some people follow him? Well, some like this family lineage thing. They say he's related to Muhammad, therefore, that's really important. He's part of the family of Ali. We need to put him in power. Other people likely supported him for more kind of regular political reasons, right? They're hoping to get some kind of kickback out of this. If we help him now, he will help us down the line. Other people certainly tried to support him because they thought maybe they could control him later on. All that being said, he has support. He has people who follow him, and they see him as this great leader. And so he starts out, has this army and starts enacting revenge on his father first off, right? His father had been killed by some other religious fanatics. He takes them out of the picture. And then he starts by conquering several cities in northern Iran, or northern Persia, I should say, including Baku and Tabriz. Baku is still a very large city, it's the capital of Azerbaijan today. Tabriz is still a very large city in modern-day Iran. And when he takes over these two cities, these kind of two very important cities, he takes on, they have this big ceremony, and he takes on this title of Shah of Iran. Shah is kind of the title that they've always given kings in Persia. Shah is, it's like their official title for time immemorial, right? Since way back in Persian history, they've always called their leader the Irana Shah, or the Shah of Iran. And so that is an important moment. He is officially claiming this title as like king. And so for the next 10 years, he's going to constantly be, as king, trying to expand and unite Persia into one singular kind of entity and take out all of these other local, smaller kingdoms that are nearby. And Ismail was pretty tough. I mean, he was a brutal guy. He is known for having an army that was very skilled. His army was actually exceptional at horseback riding. Their cavalry was well known. They repeatedly would win battles against enemies that were much larger in size. And Ismail was brutal in victory. He would wipe out his enemies. He was not somebody who was offered clemency or let people surrender very often. He generally wanted to take out his angers, I guess. An example of him being brutal, one that I always find funny, is that he actually took the skull of an enemy of his, a leader of an Uzbek tribe, and he has his skull turned into like a drinking cup, like a goblet or like a chalice, and he bejewels it. He puts a little mount on it, but he has this literal cup to drink wine out of that's made out of the skull of his enemies. And then later on, he would actually give that cup to the Mughal ruler Babur as a sign of friendship, since they're kind of coming to power around the same time. Now, the big thing that Ismail is going to be known for is spreading Shia Islam. He wants all of his subjects to follow in Shia Islam. And that makes sense because his legitimacy, right, his kind of claim to the throne partially comes from the idea that he is related to Ali. He is kind of the family of Shia Islam is in his heritage, is in his lineage. And so because of that, he very much feels strongly towards Shia Islam, but he also recognizes he has to make all of his subjects believe it too, right? I give the example of if you were a Christian and you said, I'm related to Jesus for whatever reason, but you're ruling over a bunch of Jewish people, it wouldn't matter to them that you're related to Jesus, that they don't care. In the same way, for Ismail, the fact that he's related to Ali and he is related to Muhammad is very important, and so he has to make sure all of his subjects, all of the people within his realm also believe that, right? So he's forcing people to convert, right? And that is, if you don't convert, you're going to get killed, right? So he's forcing people to convert. He's also actively recruiting Shia Muslims out of other territories and telling them to come to his. People don't like that because, he's taking Ottoman territory or Ottoman subjects out. That means there's less taxes for the Ottomans. They don't want that to happen, obviously. So that's big. Finally, the thing that really causes some problems is he starts to destroy holy sites of Sunni Muslims within his territory, right? He does not like Sunni Islam. He wants to destroy the tombs of holy men. He's tearing down the mosque of the Sunni worshippers and creating his own Shia versions of mosques, because there are some differences within that. Now, all of this does get the attention of the most powerful empire at the time, the Ottomans. So the Ottoman Sultan, Selim the Strong, is personally outraged by the actions of Ismail. For one, I want to remind y'all, Ottoman sultans considered themselves the caliph. They consider themselves the leaders in all of Islam. And so the fact that Ismail is going through and destroying holy sites, he's forcing people to convert, he's encouraging Ottoman citizens to leave, that is all like personal attacks in Selim's mind. Those are, he sees it as his job to protect Islam, and he says Ismail is undermining Islam in many ways. And so Selim is furious, declares war on the Safavid Empire, and they begin to march to the Persian border. And as they're going, we get these really interesting letters being sent from Selim and then being sent in return from Ismail, where they kind of bicker back and forth a little bit about how they should be doing Islam. So we will read those letters. So the first one comes from Sultan Selim. So this is from the Ottoman side. He says, This letter, which is stamped with the seal of victory, has been graciously sent by our most glorious Majesty, the Solomon of splendor, the Alexander of eminence, haloed in victory, triumphant, slayer of the wicked and the infidel, guardian of the noble and the pious, the warrior in the path, the defender of the faith, the champion, the conqueror, the lion, son and grandson of the lion, standard bearer for justice and righteousness, Sultan Selim, son of Sultan Bayezid, son of Sultan Mehmed, and is sent to the ruler of the kingdom of the Persians, the possessor of the land of tyranny and perversion, the captain of the vicious, the chief of the malicious, the usurping Darius of the time, the malevolent Zach of the age, the peer of Cain, Prince Ismail. So this is just the opening of the letter, and we can see a couple things. One, Sultan Selim sees himself pretty highly, right? He's saying that his job, right, he's not just the ruler of the Ottoman Empire, but he is the defender of the faith. He is the warrior of the path. Path with a capital P, right? You got to follow the path to heaven. He is the conqueror. He is the champion. He sees himself very highly. And then he starts throwing accusations at Shah Ismail, right? Saying, you're a tyrant. You're perverse. You are a captain of a bunch of vicious people. You're malicious. The usurping Darius, he's kind of referring to some older Persian history. Darius was a Persian king who had overthrown or killed the king before him, and so killed this guy and then took the throne. So kind of making some jabs at Ismail, saying, you don't deserve to be the king. You're a usurper. You stole the throne. So really throwing some shots. He continues. So again, this is Selim saying this. He says, "It has been heard repeatedly that you have subjected the upright community of Muhammad to your devious will, that you have undermined the firm foundation of the faith, that you have unfurled the banner of oppression to the cause of aggression, that you no longer uphold the commandments and prohibitions of divine law, that you have incited your abominable Shia faction to the shedding of innocent blood. You have given ear to deceitful words and have eaten that which is forbidden. Consensus of the Sunni community agree that the ancient obligation of extermination and expulsion of evil innovation must be the aim of our exalted aspiration. For religious zeal is a victory of the faith of God the Beneficent. Then in accordance with the words of the prophet, whosoever introduces evil innovation into our order must be expelled, and whosoever does aught against our order must be expelled. Action has become necessary and exigent. Then with the support and the assistance of God, I will crown the branches of every gallows tree with the head of a crown-wearing Shia, and clear that faction from the face of the earth." So he's saying, right, we have heard what you're doing. You are undermining the foundation of the faith. You are subjecting Muslims to your devious will, that you are being oppressive, that you are not following the commandments and the prohibitions of our law, and that you are inciting people to shedding innocent blood. So consensus of everybody he knows, right, this is Salim saying, consensus of the community agrees that we have to kick you out. We have to expel the evil, right? And he uses this line right here, in accordance with the words of the prophet. So he is referencing Muhammad in what he's saying, right? The prophet of Islam is Muhammad. So he's like, look, Muhammad said, whosoever introduces evil must be expelled. And so he's telling Ismail, you have introduced evil. I have to expel you from Islam, right? I have to kill you and crown the branches of the gallows tree with your heads. And Ismail doesn't like that. Ismail is offended by Salim's words, but also is kind of welcoming this fight. Ismail thinks that he can do this, right? Ismail thought that his famous cavalry would lead him to victory. He believed he was destined to bring Shia Islam to the whole world. Ismail sees himself very highly. He had not lost battles. He is somebody who thought he was almost untouchable. And so in a response letter to Sultan Selim, he's a little arrogant. He is a little sarcastic. He actually even accuses Sultan Selim of being on drugs when he wrote the letter, and says, oh, anybody who writes a letter like that to me has got to be high. So he sent him a box of drugs to even go with the letter he sent with him. So this is Ismail's response. Ismail says this: "May his godly majesty, the refuge of Islam, the might of the kingdom, he upon whom God looks with favor, the champion of the Sultanate and the state, the hero of the faith and of the earth, Sultan Selim, accept this affectionate greeting and this friendly letter, considering it a token of our goodwill." And I think he kind of says this sarcastically. It's not, champion of the Sultanate of the state. He's probably saying it or meaning for it to sound like, oh, champion of the Sultanate and the state. Oh, Sultan Selim, you're so strong. I'm so scared of you. Why? Please accept this gift as a token of our goodwill. So he continues, he says, now to begin. Your honored letters have arrived one after another. For no sooner has a thing doubled than it has tripled. Their contents indicate hostility and are stated with boldness and vigor. He's saying, look, I keep getting your letters one after another. No sooner has it doubled than it's tripled. He's basically saying, hey, Selim, why are you triple lettering me? Why are you triple texting me? I'm not that into you. And their contents are hostile, right? And they're bold and vigorous, right? They are a little saucy. So he says, in the time of your late father, may God enlighten his proof, concord and friendship was shown on both sides. Moreover, when you were governor at Trebizond, there existed perfect mutual understanding. Thus now the cause of your resentment and displeasure remains unknown. If political reasons have compelled you on this course, then may your problems soon be solved. He's like, look, we've always been boys. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why you're mad. Says we've always loved the Ottoman house, and we do not wish the outbreak of sedition and turmoil once again. Why should we take offense at these provocations? We will not. He then goes on and says, the mutual hostility of kings is verily an ancient right. Should one hold the bride of worldly rule too close, his lips, those of the radiant sword, will kiss. So I love this line. It's actually a little verse of poetry. It would rhyme in Persian where they wrote it. But he's basically saying, the mutual hostility of kings is an ancient right. Kings have always hated each other. If there are two kings, one thing that's true is that they probably don't like each other. He then says, should one hold the bride of worldly rule too close, his lips, those of the radiant sword, will kiss. If you try to rule the world, if all you care to do is rule the whole world, then you are likely to end up, then you are likely to end up being kissed by the radiant sword, right? If you think you're going to be able to rule the world, my sword has some words to talk to you about, right? So he continues, he says, at this writing, we are engaged in a hunt near Isfahan. I'm kind of busy hunting. We will now prepare our provisions, and our troops are getting ready for the coming war. And in all friendship, we say, do what you will. This is him saying, if you want to swing, swing. If you're going to come for me, come for me. Do what you're going to do. I think you're going to attack me. Do what you will and see what happens. Because bitter experience has taught that in this world of trials, he who falls upon the house of Ali always falls. He's saying, do what you want to do, but just know, this is a tough world we live in. And in this tough world, anybody who has ever come after my household, the household that's related to Ali, the household that's related to Muhammad himself, anyone who comes after my household always falls. So when war becomes inevitable, hesitation and delay must be set aside, and one must think of that which is to come. Farewell. Saying, come and get it. So they do meet in battle. The Battle of Chaldiran in 1514. The Safavid army was reliant on their cavalry, which had already won them a lot of battles. Like I said, the Safavid were good in military. Like, they were strong. They didn't really use guns, though. They didn't bring they brought knives to this gunfight. Because the Ottoman army is going to rely on their janissaries, right? These well-trained troops. And they're going to rely on cannons and muskets. They're also going to have just more numbers. The Ottoman army is a little bigger. So when the battle breaks out, the cavalry has an advantage, right? The Safavid are good. They're maneuverable. They're fast on their horses. But once the Ottoman army starts unleashing their gunpowder weapons, shooting off their cannons, using their rifles, the whole battle shifts. The horses are frightened by the explosions, become hard to control. The janissaries on the Ottoman side are exceptional troops. They're able to use their better tactics to take out huge numbers of Safavid soldiers. And by the end of the day, the Safavid military had been just cut down by the gunpowder weapons of the Ottomans. And Ismail himself had even been shot, though he did survive. So, and I like looking at this picture. You can see this is Sultan Selim right here. This is the Ottoman side. And you can see where they're unleashing all the cannons up here as well, which I always love. So, after this loss, so like I said, Ismail, Safavid Empire, they lose this major battle to the Ottomans. Ismail gets shot. And after this battle, the Ottoman army does push forward. They capture more Safavid territory. They don't capture all of the Safavid Empire because it's big, right? It's a lot to do. Ismail does survive. He does, in return, gain some of that land back. But he also kind of starts to spiral, right? Ishmael kind of thought of himself as being untouchable, right? Being greater than everybody else. And after losing a battle, and not just losing a battle, but getting shot also, his spirit is broken. He starts to turn to alcohol. He starts to turn to drugs. And so by the age of 36, he dies after, several years of decline. He kind of lets his advisors run the empire for him. But really, it's an interesting story and a tragic story, right? He rose to power very quickly from a very young age. He does an incredible job of unifying Persia and creating this Persian empire. But then his decline is so rapid where he is, he loses this battle, and it's like nothing can go right for him for a little while afterwards until he does end up dying at such a young age as well. So anyways, that's all for the Safavid for today. Y'all have a good one, and I'll catch you later.